Shalom, and welcome to Challenging Torah, a project of the Malibu Jewish Center and Synagogue. Our Parsha, which is Mishpatim, has a midrash that begins this week by saying, there's a parable of a lady who went around walking with armed soldiers on either side of her while she walked straight down the middle. And the midrash likens this to the Torah, who is presented with laws on one side and laws on the other, and she walks down the middle, protected by a legal system. Mishpatim, which means judgments or legalities, actually these legalities were given form last week in the portion of Jethro, before the beginning of the Torah, where Jethro comes to his son-in-law Moses and says, Moses, the people are standing in line all day long, waiting to speak with you. It's not right, and you will wear yourself out and wear them out. And so I suggest a system of courts, tens, hundreds, thousands, a Supreme Court, and then they come to you, and if you can't answer the question, you go to God. Moses says, you're right. And the court system, or the vessel for receiving Torah, is put into effect before the Torah is given. And then we know, starting with Exodus 19 last week, Moses reports that God has said, if you will obey me, you will become my precious people, nation of kingdom and priests. And they say, all that the Lord has spoken, we will do. The problem is, they can't hear what the Lord speaks. They only hear the beginning sound of an aleph and say, Moses, you hear it for us. We accept it, but we don't really hear what was said. Mishpatim immediately follows the giving of the Torah at Sinai. And we go from this place of thunder and lightning and light and sound show to, these are the laws. And it's not just 10. We have 613 mitzvot, or rules, or obligations. And over the time, oral law extends on each one of these, expands all of the details. God, it turns out, is in the holiness of the details, as we know. Not just the devil, but also holiness. And so we get the following. If two men fight and a pregnant woman is hid and miscarries, the husband shall fine the responsible one. Nothing happens about her. But if the pregnant woman dies, then the one who has perpetrated must compensate a life for a life, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. Pretty strong. When anyone strikes a slave, because there were slaves, eye or tooth, and the slave loses the eye or tooth, the slave should be set free. When an ox gores someone, he shall be put to death, but the owner not responsible. But if the ox continues to gore, we call him the goring ox, then the ox and the owner are put to death because he didn't take responsibility. When anyone opens a pit and leaves it uncovered and someone falls into the pit, the person who left the pit is responsible. He must make fair payment for the loss. If it's an animal, he gets to keep the dead animal, etc., etc. If you lend money to my people, especially the poor, God says, do not act as a creditor or take interest. Return to your neighbor what you borrow before the sun sets. Lists and lists and lists of laws, some very picky, some huge concepts, and over we are told 37 times in Torah, but a number of times in these portions, you shall not oppress a stranger, nor do any wrongs to strangers. For you were strangers in the land of Egypt. You shall bring no harm to a widow or an orphan, lest in God's anger, you become a widow, and your children become orphans. I am the Lord thy God. So the laws run the gamut. And we say, we will do all that the Lord has spoken, but now they say, na'aseh v'nishma. We will do and we will hear, leaving open the possibility of what are you going to hear. And this is the beauty of Judaism and of Torah. This is an endlessly unfolding project. We hear according to our culture. We hear according to our ability. We are different in what we hear now than what we heard when we were teenagers, or probably when we'll be very old. We hear according to the laws around us. The legal system is not fixed but flexible. That's why Talmud, Mishnah, Gemara, oral law exists to unpack it in its generation. It moves more slowly, glacially, in comparison to the society around, but it will respond and change. Mishpatim really holds the key to all of Judaism. And we say, oh, it's Jews, it's a legal system. And just when we get too comfortable with that definition, we launch into a whole other portion of Mishpatim, which is these are the rituals that you shall keep. The sacrifices, the holidays, the entire holiday cycle by which Jews are to live their lives, and again, Shabbat. And it's easy to just take that and say, that's what's Jewish. And then, in a very surprising move, God says, okay, I need to give you a written document here. We need to seal the covenant. Moses, come on up. And up went Moses, Nadav, Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel go up onto Mount Sinai. And they saw the God of Israel, and under his feet a kind of paved work of a sapphire stone, like the very heaven for clearness. Included in this is not just the legal and not just the ritual, but the personal connection of a human being and God. They not only see God and live, they actually sit down to a picnic on the mountain. All three of these are what make Judaism so alive and vital. And we emphasize different parts of Judaism at the moment that our lives demand it. The legal, the ritual, and the personal experience of God. All are brought to you. Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will listen, is Exodus 24/7. And to live a life of holiness takes all three of these 24/7. Have a good Shabbat.